Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 has been announced. Again. So a couple of days ago at PAX West, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 got an announcement trailer. A second one. The game was first announced back in March of 2019. I made a video about how incredibly excited I was since Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is one of my favorite games of all time. However, though it was slated to come out in 2020, it never did. It sort of went into development hell. One of the lead writers, who was one of the writers on the original, Brian Mitsoda, was fired soon after Kara Ellison left, and then the project got very, very quiet after spending a number of months revealing clans and the factions and more about the world and the story, and of course taking a whole lot of pre-orders. But it seems the project has been reborn under a new developer, and it's been given a whole overhaul in terms of gameplay and story. I think the only thing that hasn't changed is the location. Before I go too much into my thoughts about it, let's just watch the announcement trailer together. Okay, I've got the announcement trailer up. Let's just watch it and see what we can see. This is post-alpha in-game footage, developed by the Chinese Room.
With the eyes on my target,
a power vacuum in the vampire court. So it definitely seems like this is more of a tone trailer. Oh, that kind of looked a little bit familiar. An elder awoken. Some of these environments look fairly similar. The combat looks similar again. I haven't watched the old trailers in a bit, but it does seem to have a lot of like weight and bite to it. A lot of melee, obviously. There we saw some probably thaumaturgy, blood magic abilities, which I always love. Looks like mostly melee combat, or all melee combat that they showed off here. Oh, someone's dead. Who is it? I don't know.
Can you hear it? My blood is singing. I will wait for you.
All right. So coming fall 2024, Epic, Steam, GOG, Xbox, PlayStation 5. So basically everything but Switch, which is fairly to be expected. So yeah, that was a trailer. Honestly, not much. It was a minute and a half long. I don't think it really told us a whole lot about the game. It featured a lot of combat, which is exactly what the first trailer did, which is obviously not the most interesting part of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. It never was in the first, and I would expect there to be a lot more emphasis on dialogue and other more interesting vampire powers than one that make them better at combat. There is a bunch of information on the Paradox website, so I'm just going to go over some of that now. So there's very little information available so far. We've got an introduction. It says, "You are the monster. Fight your way through a modern-day Seattle on the brink of an open war as an elder vampire. Meet the power players, ally yourself, and decide who will rule and what the city will become. A three-front siege on Seattle, a power vacuum in the vampire court, and an awakened elder at odds with the voice in her head, realized by BAFTA award-winning studio, The Chinese Room." So there, right from the get-go, is a pretty big difference in direction of the story and the character from the initial announcement, whereas in that one, you were playing a newly turned Thin Blood amongst a sort of mass turning of Thin Bloods. Here, you are playing an elder vampire, which I think sounds a lot more interesting. Obviously, like a newly turned vampire makes sense for role-playing reasons, but in terms of power, an elder vampire is going to be a lot more powerful, and having those powers is going to be a lot more believable than, a fledgling who just gets insanely powerful by the end of a single story. So I do like that change, being an elder vampire rather than a Thin Blood. It also says, blood sustains you and powers your vampiric disciplines. You'll stalk and feed on the city's population by night. Use your supernatural powers or raw persuasion on civilians and lure them into deep, dark alleys to sate your hunger. Beware of breaking the masquerade, though. Do not reveal what you are or you risk reprisals. At first from law enforcement, and then, well, remember you are not all that goes bump in this night. Explore visceral, immersive combat, rewarding entirely different playstyles and approaches based on your choice of vampire clan. Will you wade into the fray with supernatural fists, harangue from afar, or rebalance your odds by thinning the herd like the apex predator you are? Clan choice supports these playstyles and more. So they haven't announced what clans are coming. It does say that there is more coming soon between now and the end of 2023 about what specific clans you can play. I believe in the first clan game, it had sort of what you'd expect. I think Brujah, Malkavian, Tremere, Toreador, and Ventru. I would assume it would be fairly similar this time around, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. And of course, it does say rewards entirely different playstyles in terms of combat, and it does talk about using powers or persuasion on civilians, so that sounds fun. The last bit here is enter the world of darkness and rise through vampire society or rail against it. Experience Seattle, a city full of alluring, dangerous characters and factions, not to mention the mortals at stake in the clash of powers beyond their knowing. In this sequel to the cult classic, your choices, plots, and schemes will determine the balance of power and what becomes of the city and its people. So, again, that doesn't really tell us a whole lot. It's still taking place in Seattle, which is what was planned in the beginning. But yeah, that's basically what's been announced. I guess the other thing is that the new developer is the Chinese Room, which is honestly a bit of a weird choice, I think. The Chinese Room made Dear Esther, which was like the first ever walking sim. Also an incredibly boring game. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, which was also a walking sim, which I never played. And then they'd made an Amnesia spin-off. I think A Machine for Pigs? Is that the one they did? One of those, but I had never played that, but I'm pretty sure the Amnesia games are sort of like walk around and hide from monsters in spooky atmospheres type games. So not who I would expect for a game that would have sort of, I assume would have a whole bunch of different mechanics and combat and things like that. But also, you know, a bit of a strange choice and one that, you know, I'm willing to give any developer a chance. I think they will be able to get down like atmosphere and tone. Now, one other thing about the Chinese Room is that it was sort of rebuilt. I think in 2017, the directors laid off the entire staff, which was only about 8 people. So they sort of rebuilt it from the ground up. So I'm not sure how much their previous work is actually going to come into consideration when it comes to Bloodlines 2. So the website also says that the game they'll have a full-length gameplay video in January of 2024, so that's something to look forward to for a little more information about the game. And it's set to release in fall of 2024. So whether that happens or not, we'll see. I don't feel entirely confident about that. Just going through some more things that has been reported. Setting remains broadly the same. It's still modern-day Seattle in winter, which we could see from the trailer. The creative director said that Bloodlines 2 is using a new code base with different gameplay mechanics and RPG systems than the one that Hardsuit Labs was originally developing. So it seems like they've scrapped most of the game other than some art assets and things which have been carried over. You are an elder who has been awoken from a long slumber, so the world will still be new to them, but they'll be more powerful than a freshly turned vampire. So you'll have to fill in the character a bit and be able to roleplay as you go. So far there's not a ton that we know about Bloodlines 2. I know I sort of lost hope. People were asking me about it all the time, even after the original devs kind of went radio silent on it. I basically lost all hope. Now, I'm interested. I'm definitely not nearly as hyped as I was when it was first announced, you know, once bitten, twice shy. unless you like to be bit. But overall, I'm cautiously, not even optimistic, but I'm happy that the project isn't dead. I'm interested to see more. I will probably play it when it comes out in 2024 or whenever it actually comes out. I was disappointed when it went radio silent before, just because I love Bloodlines so much. I would love to see a worthy sequel. I'm not entirely convinced that one is going to be made, but I'm interested to see what they have to say and what they have to show in a year or so. So that's it. That's basically everything we know about the new Bloodlines 2. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. If you're excited about this one, if you're just gonna sort of wait and see like I am. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. If you want to see more, go check out my review of the original Bloodlines, or another of my videos. I have a Patreon if you want to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.